Well, good Saturday morning to you. We're reading from Luke 12, Luke 6, 12 through 16. In these days, he went out to the mountain to pray, and all night he continued in prayer to God. When day came, he called his disciples and chose from them 12, whom he named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, and Andrew his brother, and James and John, and Philip and Bartholomew, and Matthew and Thomas, and James son of Alphaeus, and Simon who is called the Zealot, and Judas son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. So the first thing we see here is that Jesus prayed all night before he picked his disciples. And so prayer is an important part of what we do, and anything we do that's significant we need to pray about. And much should be obvious. Then he picked out the 12. Now, we think of his 12 disciples, but he had lots of disciples. We don't know how many disciples. But the 12 were specifically picked out, and they were the inner circle. And then there's a smaller inner circle beyond that, but the 12 disciples, or he says here, he called them apostles. Now, apostle is from a Greek word that means one who is sent, apostello, I send you. Disciple is a follower. So out of the followers, he picked out 12 that he sent. And that's a little bit of an anachronism, because they became called the apostles after his resurrection, when they began to go out in different directions and preach. And it's pretty easy to find out, Google, what happened to these apostles and the various stories. For instance, Peter went to Rome, ended up in Rome, and was a leader of the church there because of his connection to Jesus. He dictated his memories to Mark, who wrote them down, but not in order, the writer says. So we know that Mark is based on Peter's memories, but it's arranged in a different, according to Mark's own thinking about how the story should be told. And Peter is crucified famously upside down in the Circus Maximus, which in the track part of it, in the middle. And the spot where he was crucified is the spot that the big altar is in the Catholic Basilica of St. Peter in Rome, in the Vatican. So they built the church there over that traditional spot. And if you look at, the archaeology of it, read some books, you'll see that there's the big contemporary church, the big communion altar, and underneath it they found other churches from previous eras. And so deep in the basement underneath the altar, they found a very ancient monument, and in that were bones. And so there's some speculation that Peter was actually buried there where he was killed, and that's where the church was built. It's all speculation, but isn't it kind of cool to think about that? There's stories like that about all of these people. For some of them, the stories are, that they went up into what is now Bulgaria and were crucified. No, they were in a town with a similar name, but it's down in Africa. So we don't know where some of them went. Thomas went to India, and we know that because there is a church in India, a denomination that calls itself Bar Thoma. So it's the Church of Thomas. So there are these stories that go on. As you read the list, you see there's several names that are repeated because there were common names in ancient Israel. See here in this particular list, Bartholomew and Matthew, as though they were two people, and then there's a Levi in some of the stories. And so Levi and Matthew and Bartholomew, no one's quite sure who's who and which names refer to the same person, but that's just problem of history. Um, you've got James, the son of Zebedee, James and John. You've got James, the son of Alphaeus, who never says anything in the Gospels that I remember. Simon the Zealot, the Zealot was, let's kill the Romans. And then two Judases, Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, Judas from Kerioth. And he became a traitor. So Jesus picks out these 12 people to have their mission. There were other disciples that followed him. Those 12 are the ones that he sent out specifically, or 11 actually, because Judas wasn't around. He picked out 12 to represent the 12 tribes, it's thought, and the 12, you have the 12 tribes, you have the 12 disciples. So that's the significance of that. So think about today what it means to be a disciple, what it means to be an apostle, to be sent somewhere with a particular task, and what it means for you to follow Jesus in the simplest kind of ways. But think about that today. Have a great day. We will see you again on Monday.